coders. Welcome to this, I suppose, Facebook Live session where I'm going to be diving into some stuff regarding an application that I am building. It's a budgeting app, so I call it the budgeting app for lack of a better creative title. I'm building this app out as part of the Coders Campus package of courses. It's a workshop that I'm doing where I build out a real world application and show you how I would build it from scratch. Currently, I'm about to record video number 12, so that's sort of the process. That's how far I am into this process thus far. But I figured it'd be kind of a neat concept to share these videos with my audience through Facebook Live, so people can actually see sort of me progressing through the creation of this application. So if for any reason you're interested in grabbing the actual full series of these videos, you can go to coderscampus.com/budget, and that'll redirect you to the page where you can actually, like I said, purchase the entire course. It's going to be quite a large course. It's probably going to be, I would imagine, upwards of 20, maybe 30 videos. So it's going to be quite a lengthy project. But I'm building this for myself and my wife because we desperately need a good budgeting app solution in order to create or to manage our budgets and so on and so forth. So that is why I am building this out myself, and I figured, hey, it'd be fun to share it with my community as well. So without further ado, let me hide that up and let me share my screen. So this is the code that I have written out so far. Basically, all it does is it has some Spring security stuff in it, which allows you to put a sort of not a paywall, but a registration wall in front of the main functionality of the application. So if someone tries to go in and create a budget, it's going to say, hold on, log in first before you do that. So let me just show you, let me run the very unimpressive application right now. After 12 videos, it's still not that impressive of what it does. But there's a lot behind this actual application. So if I go to localhost 8080, it just says, welcome to the budgeting app. Very, very simple, very ugly welcome screen. You click on the login button, and it gives you the login screen. Also very simple, very ugly. I have created one user in the database. If I try to log in with this, it won't work because it's an incorrect password. This has failed to log in. I need to type in the correct password, and then I say log in, and then it allows me to log in and see the next screen, which is the /budgets endpoint. So it just says this is where the budgets will be listed once this code is properly implemented. So that's literally everything that this application does as of this moment. But that's okay. I'm building it step by step by step. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, that kind of thing. So the first thing I want to do here is the majority of this content in this video is going to be focused around the actual registration process. So creating a registration page and trying to make it look as pretty as possible. A little, not warning, but a note to make. I'm focusing on making this mobile first, mobile friendly. So I'm designing this to work or to look good on a mobile phone. Okay, so that is the purpose of the use of this, is mostly going to be on the mobile phone, not necessarily on the desktop. Although of course it'll be able to be used on a desktop. It just might not look as pretty out of the gate because I'm optimizing it for the mobile phones. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to create a logout button on this page, on the /budgets page. So I have an actual budgets HTML template. So in my templates, I have a budget.html, which is what you see here. I just want to add a very, very simple like little logout link. So what I'll do here is I'll wrap this in a paragraph tag, and I'll just have another paragraph tag with a link, ahref. It just goes to /logout. And it just says logout. Like so, close my paragraph tag, refresh this page, there's a logout link, I click on it, boom, it logs me out. There we go, that's all I wanted to do there. So very, very simple first little thing that I did. So now what I want to do is create an actual registration screen. So if they click on login, on the login page, next to the login button, there will be a register button, okay? So I need to go to my login view, which is right here, login.html. I'd created this in a previous video that I recorded yesterday. So it's basically all that's on the screen is, well, exactly what you see here. It's a title that says please log in. It's a username password that is grabbed from, it grabs a field from the model, which is passed from the controller. So the login controller creates a new user, puts that user on the model, and it returns the actual view of login. So we have a user on the model called user, And on the login page, we reference that user's properties via the user.username and user.password. So the username and password fields are actually hooked up and bound to the Java side of things from HTML. So here's a login button. Now what I want to also add is another button. This one won't be a submit. I'll just say button. Class will be BTN. The BTN class comes from Bootstrap. So I'll make this BTN, I don't know, primary maybe. I think that's a class that makes it sort of a bright blue colored. And I'll say register. So let's have a look and see what that looks like. There we go. So bright blue register button. If I click on it, it actually tries to log in. So that's because there's a button inside of a form. Now I'm trying to remember what it is that I can do to stop that from submitting the form. I believe if I give an ID to that button, so I should preface this by saying this is just a fun little workshop type session where I haven't done any pre-planning, any preparation or whatsoever. I'm just diving into it and writing the code so you can see exactly how a real programmer works from a day-to-day basis. It's like looking over my shoulder and like pair programming with me almost. So that's the purpose of this video. Also, if at any point you have a question, feel free to ask it on Facebook. If you're currently watching this live, by all means, ask the question. If you're watching it as a replay, you can also absolutely ask the question, and I'll try my best to answer all the questions after this live broadcast is done. If I don't, I apologize. I more or less just had a baby, and it's our firstborn, and he is going through a bit of a sleep regression right now, so I'm a little bit tired, and he's a little fussy, so I might not be able to get to your question right away if you ask it. Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. So let's create the register BTN as the ID. And for this one, let me type submit. Let me add an ID to this one to say login button. And I believe what I can do is I can create some jQuery code to intercept these clicks. I think that should handle my problem of having it log in when I don't, or when it's submitting the form when I don't necessarily want it to submit the form. So we'll create a script type text JavaScript. We will have the jQuery code function. It's been a while since I've written jQuery code. Here we go, or a JavaScript code. So we have a function. This is sort of the initializer for jQuery. We need to write this in order for it to properly run the code, or rather run the jQuery part of the code. So inside of here, let's see, what can we throw in? We will throw in a reference to the ID. So we need a pound symbol. And I'm referencing the login button. So login BTN. So if someone clicks on that button, what do I want it to do? Anonymous function. And in here, we can make it submit the form. So there's the form. So the form is right here. I don't have an ID on the form. Let me put an ID on the form. We'll just call it, I don't know, form login or something like that. Although that's kind of a, whatever, that's fine. FRM login dot submit. Okay, so that's all that happens. You click on the login button, it submits the form. Simple as that. However, the other button is the register BTN. So when you click on that one, I don't want it to submit the form. I would rather it go to the registration page, which you can do via a window. Is it window? I forget now, .href. And it's been a while. Window.location.href equals /register. I forget the JavaScript. Anyway, I'll probably have to look it up. This is what programmers do. They Google stuff. So it just sort of forces it to go to the register endpoint, which I haven't created yet, but that's okay. I'm going to reboot my server and test this out. Someone says job vacancy. Don't know what necessarily you mean by job vacancy. Can you elaborate on the question? Preferably if the questions were related to the program that I'm writing, that would be nice. I don't know if that's related to it or not, but we'll find out. So on the login screen, let me refresh. If I click login, it tries to log in. If I click on register, okay, it's still trying to log in. So it's still submitting that form. What do I do? I can't recall because the button is inside the form. I mean, one thing I can do is move the button outside of the form. But that's kind of annoying. So let's go to our friend, Google. How to stop a form from submitting with button press. How to prevent them from submitting forms. Button type equals button. You're using HTML5. Remember the reason, so you need to specify its type explicitly. Oh, I see. We didn't say type equals button. I thought would be obvious since it's a button type, but let's see if that works. Refresh the page, log in, register. Oh, so hold on. So that did work, believe it or not. So when I clicked on register, it didn't say failed to log in. But what it did do is it tried to go to the /register endpoint, but the /register endpoint is secured behind the registration wall. You need to, you need to register before you can go to the registration screen, which is not correct behavior. So that's not good. So that's a Spring Security problem. So if I flip over to my Spring Security, I can see that for the previous video, this is where I talked about the different endpoints that you can secure. So in this case, I need to permit traffic through the registration page. So I need to say ant matchers for /register. I should permit all the traffic to go through the /register endpoint. Okay. Little tweak there. Go to the register page. There we go. So now it says 404, which is what I expected because I haven't created a page yet for the registration page. That's the whole point of this video, is to create that page. So now at least we're able to access that /register endpoint. So now let's get to the job at hand, which is creating that page. So let's do I'm going to go to templates, file new file, call it register.html, opens up a blank HTML page, so I will do the doc type HTML, create my HTML tags, my head tags, my body tags, my title tags. So please register will be my title. In the body, so this is where we need to start making it look somewhat nice for people to log in. So remember, we're trying to make this look nice in terms of working for a mobile phone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Bootstrap, which I've already was on. So you go to bootstrap.com. Currently, Bootstrap is in version 4 now. The beta of 4 finally came out. So things are a little bit different than I'm used to because I'm used to using Bootstrap 3. But hey, I'm all about learning, so let's dive into Bootstrap 4. So one thing with Bootstrap 4 is the grid is a little bit different. I'm not used to the syntax where you can have you specify column SM without having to actually specify the number along with it. So these are 3 equally sized columns, but with the grid system here, normally, with the old grid system, you'd have to say column small 4, column small 4, column small 4, because 444 is 12, and it wants a 12 size grid when it comes to Bootstrap. But now you can omit that, and it kind of figures it out itself via Flexbot, which is kind of cool. So that's just sort of the grid stuff. But what I want to do is I want to, let's see, content, no, components, yes. So what I want to have is some sort of a header, utility send migration about. Oops, Jumbotron. So the Jumbotron sort of wraps everything in this, colored background. Do I like that? So this is a question of design, right? What I was thinking of doing was having some sort of a header. What were those called before? I did them in, they were boxes, badge, breadcrumb, buttons, button group, card, carousel, collapse, drop-down form, input group, list group, modal, navs. So I could do a nav bar, pagination popover. What's a popover look like? No, that's not what I want. Progress, scroll. So it's interesting. It's like they took out what I was using before, which were panels. That's what I was using before, panels. So are there no panels in, let's do it, Google, panels in Bootstrap 4. I guess they're called cards now. Cards replace the old panels. Okay, fair enough. So those are cards now. So cards, I guess that's kind of like what a panel would look like, so to speak. So let's try out a card. Let's see if there's any examples of a card that sort of matches the look and feel that I was going for. So yeah, kind of like this, header and footer, right? So let's grab this code. I love Bootstrap. I love it, love it, love it. Paste it in. We also need to remember to bring in the Bootstrap code itself. So let me go back home and say download and grab the appropriate scripts. So I go to the Bootstrap CDN, grab jQuery as well as Bootstrap code, paste it in. Okay, so we have Bootstrap, we have jQuery on there, we created a card. Let's take a look and see what the card looks like now if I go to my page. Oh yeah, sorry, I need to actually create the endpoint or the controller. I haven't done that yet. So in the controllers, I say new class. This is in the web class. That's where I typically put all my controllers. So this is going to be the register. Well, should I put this in the register or should I put it in the login? I feel like that might be overkill to have another. Yeah, let me just put it in the login controller. So without creating another controller, I'll just have a request mapping. Value is register. Method will be get, request method.get. So that's what we send a get request, HTTP request to get the page, to load it up. So that will return a string. We'll call it get register. And it will return, it'll have on the model, we'll have, I guess, a user that, well, is that true? Yes, because we want to create a user account when we register, right? So we'll add an empty user to the model, just like we did above when we were logging in. Return the register page, which we already created in our template. Let's let the reboot of the server happen. Let's go to register page. So there you go. Now we can see that it's loading the register page, and it has our sort of default, look and feel that we, imported. We copied from Bootstrap. So card header featured. So how do we make it? Card headers can be styled adding .card header to H elements. So H4 featured. So right now in my, where'd it go? Register page, I see, it's just div class. So we can say, H2 class, that what it's saying? Class card header. Yeah, that way I'll make it a bit bigger because I want it to be a bit bigger. There you go, featured, sweet. So I don't know, instead of saying featured, we can say please register. And then inside of this card, we can have the content, which is going to be, so inside the body, we have a title, as well as text, and potentially a link, right? Which looks like a button. So the link here is going to be register, right? That's going to be what we want it to do, is to actually register the person. And then the title, do we need a title? I feel like that's overkill. Let me comment this out. And then we'll just have the the username and the password and the confirm password fields. So let's do that. Now we can have a label called, we'll say email address. Ooh, now another thing with Bootstrap is, let's see if they've changed their forms. So it's essentially, this is exactly what I want it to look like. I want it to be a form with email address, blah, 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 password. So that's exactly what I want. Look at that. Are there any other examples of what might look better? No, it looks like that's exactly what I want. So let me just cheat and copy paste everything into here, into the card body. We have our form, email address, blah, 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 blah. Now, the ID, we can comment, or not comment out, we can delete, because I want to replace it with a th field that grabs the user that's on the model, user.username, right? I want it to bind it to the user that we passed to the model when we had it in the register. Where'd it go? Login controller, right here. We create a new user and add it to the model. So I want to be able to grab that and bind it to this email input type. Okay? And the password, I want to bind it to th field user.password, right? Now, form check, I don't think I need this checkbox, so I'll delete that. What I do need, though, is a duplicate for confirming password, right? Confirm password. This won't map to any, won't bind to anything. Should it bind to anything? We could do the password. Yeah, let's not make it bind to anything for now. We'll just say confirm password will be the ID, so we can refer to it later. Retype password. Okay. Cool. Now, also I need to bring in time leaf. I didn't, specify. You need to bring in XML namespace. Time leaf is th equals, and it points to their website, timeleaf.org. Okay, so refresh. Oh, I messed up. Exception parsing, line 22. What did I do? What is it complaining about? Column 13. Input type. Line 22. So is it not closing a tag? Yeah, it's not closing. So with Timeleaf, I'm using Timeleaf because I created this with Spring Boot. Timeleaf is very strict with its syntax. So I didn't close this input type here, so I need to close it for it to work properly, which probably means I need to close all the other ones as well. Input here needs to be closed. Input here needs to be closed. There we go. So, oops, submit register. I didn't mean to have two buttons there. Submit here, register. So I guess that was from my old code. I can delete the register because that is not needed. There we go. We have this kind of, registration form that we've created that looks pretty nice, right? I did that in about, what was that, 10 minutes? So that was pretty good. But now we need to actually make it do something. So let me take a drink. The other thing is there's no container here. Do I want a container? Let me think about that. Maybe not, because again, I want this to be mobile first. So let me shrink it to make it look like what it'll look like on a mobile phone, pretty much. So if I shrink it to sort of this size, this is sort of what it's going to look like when we're on a mobile phone, which looks good, actually. I like that. That's a good look and feel for how I would want it to function. So actually, I really like the way it looks. I'm pretty impressed with that. Good job, Bootstrap. It makes my job so much easier as someone who is not at all a designer. So cool. So we can submit via there. The form, okay, form needs an action, which will really just point to itself. It's going to point to /register. The method will be a post. It should post. And then inside of our login controller, we can grab or specify an endpoint for the post with a request mapping. So we'll change this to post. Public string post register. And this is going to take the model attribute of a user, right? Because that's the whole point, is we're binding the data from the form, the HTML form, to an actual Java object. And we can do that via the model attribute annotation. And we can import that from Spring Framework. And then we can have it return, I guess we can have it return a redirect to the login page. And maybe even with a message, we can say message equals, count created. Okay, so that way we can show that message on the login screen. So now also we need to, when we get the actual user that's been submitted, we need to actually create that user somewhere. So I've already created a user repository using Spring Data. So I'll just create an interface called the user repository and extends JPA repository, which takes in the user object, which is my user object from my program, as well as this long value refers to the data type of the user's ID. So if we go to the user object, the ID is of type long. So there we go. So that pretty much creates all the CRUD stuff for us out of the box. So Spring Data saves us a huge amount of time with creating repositories or DAOs, whatever you want to call them. Huge time saver. So now with this repository, I can go to the login controller. I can auto-wire that bad boy in. Call it user repo. Control-Shift-O to organize my imports. With that user repo, I can say user repo.save the user. Done. So that user will actually be saved onto into my database. Cool? Cool. So then it redirects to the login page. That sounds good. I don't know if it'll show this message or not. I might need to do some coding there to get that to show properly, but that's okay. What else we got here? Register page. Are we done? We got the submit. That'll do the post. All right, we need to make sure we can confirm the password first. So let's assign an ID to this because we do need to do some pre-processing just before we submit the form. So we'll call this the submit button. Again, we'll create some JavaScript. Script type equals text/JavaScript. Create our jQuery initializing function. And then we will say when the submit button is clicked, we should do something. So we need to validate the form here. Do form validation. But we need to check and make sure that the two password fields are equivalent. So the password we're wanting to have, we have to confirm it to make sure that they are the same. So really, I need to grab the password value. So we'll call this the password. And the confirm password is confirm password, I think is what I called it, value. Let's just double check that. Confirm password is the ID. So we have the password and confirm password. So we say if password is not equal to confirm password, then we have a problem, right? We need to, display an error or something. I can be boring and make it just an alert. But that's kind of boring. Let's make it a little bit more fancy. So let's go into our, I guess I need to do this, expand it out. So Bootstrap probably has something for that. Let's see what we got. Alerts. There you go. That's what I want. So div class alert, blah, blah, blah. So I guess it would be a danger alert, right? So a danger. So where would we put it? We would probably put it above the, oops, I didn't know about the calculator. Could probably put it above the password field, below the password. We'll just put it at the top of the page. Underneath, please register above the email address section. So essentially where the title was, we'll put in this danger alert. So we'll say passwords don't match. But we should make this hidden, because if we just say passwords don't match and we refresh the page, it's going to say passwords don't match right away, even though we haven't done anything. So we need to add the hidden class to this it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so this used to work with Bootstrap 3. So it's one of those things where I don't know now. How do you hide an element? Hiding element Bootstrap 4. Responsive utilities. Let's take a look at what this is. For faster mobile-friendly development, use these utility classes for showing and hiding content by device via media query. Okay. Well, I don't want to hide it based on device because I want to... No, I don't want to hide it based on device. That's saying you can hide something if it's in mobile, but not hide it if it's in desktop mode. So that's not what I want. Missing, visible, hidden. In Bootstrap 3, I've often used hidden. The hidden and visible classes no longer exist in Bootstrap 4. If you want to hide an element on a specific tiers... No, again, I don't want to hide it on specific tiers. I feel like that's weird if I just say, extra small and up equals display none. Same as hidden. Is that equals D none? Let's try, is D none an actual class now? Let's see. Okay, I guess D none is the class. So that's kind of strange. If I go down to small size, yeah, so it just always just... What was wrong with hidden? Anyway, this is the name of the game when you're using different versions of software. So, okay. That's hidden, but we want it to show up when we have the error happen, right? So essentially, instead of showing the alert, what I want to do is grab that element, which I called, probably give it a name or ID. I'll call this the password not match, for the lack of a better ID. Now I can say remove class be none. Okay, so when the passwords don't match, it'll remove that class, the d_none class, which will then hopefully make it show up. Refresh the page. If I say submit, okay, so I saw it work very briefly, but then, what I forgot to do was stop the submission of the form. So let me go up and say, oh, it shouldn't have submitted the form though. Oh, it's button type submit. Let me say button type is button. Go back to my register page, hit submit. There we go. Passwords don't match, right? So I'll refresh, click, passwords don't match. But if I type in, ASDF and then ASDF and say submit, the error does not show up. So that's good. So if the passwords do match, we'll say else. What do we want to do? We want to submit the form. So where's our form? Here it is. I didn't give it an ID. We'll call this FRM register. We'll grab that form, like so, and just say submit. So submit the form if everything is A-OK. Now, it did try to submit the form before, and I see in my log there's an insert into users with password and username. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that from my database, just really quick. Users, delete. OK. I just deleted that user from the database. So actually, let me delete everything from the database. When I just realized something else that I need to do here. Sorry, I'm doing stuff off screen. There we go. So everything's cleared out from the database now. And sorry, let me bring this back up. So registration page. My password will be ASDF, 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 submit. So now it brings me to the login page, but you see, it didn't pass in the, I guess when I do the redirect, it doesn't pass in my message. Is that normal? No, I feel like it should have done that. It should have passed in that message. It should be in the URL. Interesting. Anyway, so now the Trevor at Crafty Coder is here. If I say log in, it says no. If I type in the correct password and say log in, so it did work. This is what, oh, now the message is here. Account created. That's odd. That makes me feel like this is not working properly. Post, redirect to log in with message. So that only happened after I posted. The value is register. Yeah, that should have worked. Interesting. Maybe I need to reboot the server, do a hard reboot of the server. But anyway, it says forbidden here. It gives me a 403 error. That was expected because I forgot when I created a user, I also need to assign a role to the user. This is part of, whatchamacallit, Spring security that we're using. So when I save the user, I'm going to hold a reference to that user that we saved. I guess I don't need to redeclare it. So I'll replace what I passed in with the new user. That's going to be the user from the database now because it will have saved the user into the database. And then I also want to make sure that I add in the appropriate roles for this user. So, or can I do that before I even save it? Yeah, I can even do that before I save it. So I need to create something called an authority. Call an auth equals new authority. The authority object comes from my code base. So here's the authority domain object. It implements something called granted authority, which comes from Spring Security. But literally, it's really just two columns, an ID and an authority string. Okay, so this is just the authority here is just the role. So I want to create the role for the user because the users need a role. That's the two parts of Spring Security: authentication and authorization. We're talking about authorization, which is roles, which is whatever roles you want to give to them. I'm in my Spring Security configuration. I say that they have to have a role of user in order to access pretty much the entire application. So they have to have a user role. So because they have to have a user role, and that user that I created and registered with didn't have that role, it did not allow me to access the application. So let's fix that. Let's create an authority and say set authority to be role user, and authority.set user will be the user that we're passing in. And then the user should also set authorities, right? Which is a set of, I'm setting a set of authorities. I'm setting a collection of authorities. So I need to create a collection of authorities. So I'll create a local variable and initialize it as a hash set. And I'll say authorities.add the authority from up here, right? And then I'm going to say user.set authorities. So this is a bidirectional relationship. This comes back to databases and specifically Hibernate and how to do bidirectional relationships with Hibernate. You set one into one and you set the other into the other, and then you should be good to go. And then you save the user, and hopefully, if all goes well, it will save it appropriately. So let's have a look and see if this works. We can actually, I should probably clear out my database again. Doing it behind the scenes, clearing out the database, so there's nothing in there. Okay, database is clear. So if I go to login, I can click on register. I'll type in ASDF. Well, I'll try to test out my code again. Good, passwords don't match. ASDF, submit. Access is denied. So it inserted into users, it inserted into authority. Interesting. But access was forbidden when it went to the login page. Why would it forbid my access to the login page? Is that because I have the question mark here? Add that back in. Interesting. So, is that because I need a slash? No. Normally you can, I wonder, is it the plus? No. Okay, so clearly this message thing is a bad idea because it's causing issues. So let me delete that from my code. We'll figure out a better way to pass a message to the login page when we know that we've created a user. So on login page, I try to log in with the incorrect password. It says no. I try to log in with the correct password now. There we go. So now we see the /budgets endpoint, which just says this is where the budgets will be listed once this code is properly implemented with a logout button. So there we go. We've successfully navigated through, set up a registration, register with some email address, with a password, submit. There we go. So now I can log in with asdf@asdf.com. Log in. There we go. So now I've logged in with that user. So I've got two users, and they are both successfully saved into my database as I would expect. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the gist of creating a registration page using Bootstrap 4. That's kind of fun. I think it looks pretty darn good, especially when you, so the registration page, when you shrink it down to essentially mobile size, I think that looks pretty sexy. You say submit, it has passwords don't match. I think that looks pretty darn good. So now I guess the next step for me is going to be going back to the login screen and making the login screen look similar to the registration screen by making use of this card technology, because the login screen doesn't look all that sexy. So cool. So there you go. Not a whole lot, no questions really came in throughout this whole broadcast, but that's okay. I know this is a long broadcast and I hit you with a lot of stuff. Like I said, the purpose of the broadcast was just to do a little bit of hacking and not actual hacking, but hack away at my own budgeting app that I want to create. But yeah, that's how I do it. That's literally how I code day in and day out. So to just put a fine point on this is a series of videos that I'm putting together that are showing you how to build a real world application from scratch, which is a budgeting application from scratch, where you can set a budget for a month and you can put in your transactions just like a mint.com or whatever. And this series of videos, it's probably going to be well over 20 or 30 videos. So it's going to be a big course, and it's going to be free, not freely available. It's going to be available to you via, if you're a Coders Campus member, then you'll get access to this, because all Coders Campus members get access to these types of videos, these workshops. If you're not a Coders Campus member, you could consider just purchasing this one workshop all on its own by going to coderscampus.com/budget. So if I do that now, coderscampus.com/budget. Right now, it's just $27. $27 gives you access to the entire suite of videos. Like I said, it's probably going to be over 30 videos. It's probably going to be at least 15 to 20 hours of content. So it's super, super cheaply priced when you look at the value of what you're getting out of it. You're seeing how to apply every single piece of knowledge that I've taught inside of my Java Super course, which is like $200. You're seeing it in action inside of this course. So if you're someone who already has knowledge of Java, especially Spring and so on and so forth, then this is a perfect route for you to go, is to see this in the real world, whatchamacallits, not budgets, real world applications built from scratch before your very eyes, right? If you have no knowledge of programming, you have no knowledge of Java, then obviously this is way over your head. You probably had your eyes glazed over and you're just like, I have no idea what Trevor's talking about. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly normal, because I don't expect you to be able to follow me through everything I just did if you have never really programmed with Java before. So that's where you want to step back and perhaps consider joining Coders Campus, because Coders Campus gives you access to all of my courses that relate to learning how to program, specifically the Java Super course, which gives you a step-by-step tutorial on how to use a Java language from core Java all the way to the enterprise stuff that we're doing right now. So just wanted to shoot that out there. The price, $27, will be going up once the content grows. So probably in the next month or so, the